Are you bringing values to your company? As a salesman, are your sales helping the company's brand to grow? As an accountant, do you help the business make good financial decisions? As a 5-star Uber driver, is your hospitality bringing the company value? As a teacher, is building the virtue of your students contributing to the school's interest? As a programmer, does your code help the organizations to achieve their goals? What is job performance, and what are some important dimensions? Today, we're going to discuss job performance from the perspective of organizational behavior individual differences. There are many individual differences that are of the interest of OB researchers, such as the personality traits, values, person-environment fit. In the next few videos, we will discuss the individual differences in organizational outcomes. Today, we'll focus on performance from the OB perspective to understand its nature and its 3 dimensions: task performance, contextual performance, and adaptive performance. First, let's clarify a few questions. Number 1, is performance the behavior or the results? Researchers prefer to consider it as the behavior rather than the results. We're not talking about the effectiveness or the productivity. Besides, many other things like the situational factors that can determine the results. Farmers worked really hard for the whole year. Then the pandemic came. Fresh produce became a disaster. An Idaho farmer had to dig huge ditches to bury 1 million pounds of onions. Dairy farmers from Wisconsin are dumping thousands of gallons of fresh milk into the lagoons. Are the results a good way to determine the performance or the work they put in? The pandemic is a huge factor that impacted a lot of industries, and researchers discovered very interesting effects on soccer players' performance. Specifically, how much does the player miss a penalty kick? They found out that for home teams, the probability of missing a penalty kick increases when the matches are forced to be played behind closed doors, while visiting teams are less likely to choke on the penalty kick, with these effects being more pronounced when the level of attendance that's measured before the pandemic was high. The effect could be extended to other skilled tasks as well. In addition, to better study the performance from OB and psychology perspective, it is better to construe the performance as a behavioral phenomenon. But performance is not all the behaviors. Here, we focus only on the ones that impact the organizational goal accomplishment. And to be aware, behaviors can have both positive and negative effects. How to identify the behaviors with impacts? Several job analysis methods like critical incident technique are great ways. In understanding performance from HR perspective video, we will elaborate more on how to identify and evaluate the performance. Then comes to the next question. Is the maximum performance related to the typical performance? Can we use one to predict the other one? Not necessarily. For instance, researchers use the supermarket cashiers as samples and measure the typical cashier accuracy and speed as well as the maximum accuracy and speed over a few weeks period. The typical performance are by observation, while the maximum performance are under sample simulations, where cashiers were asked to do their best and put equal emphasis on speed and accuracy. Results demonstrated that maximum performance are not highly related to typical performance. Therefore, it's inappropriate to use one to predict the other one. Question number 4. Do different stakeholders view the impact of behavior differently? Yes. Even in many cases, the same positive behavior can be perceived positive by everyone. In certain situations and jobs, behavior can be perceived differently by different stakeholders. For instance, researchers found that in prison, correctional officers have different opinions with their supervisors, in the way that the correctional officers believe that they should use more agreeable behavior towards the inmates to be more effective, where their supervisors believe that conscientious behavior toward inmates should be more effective, which will contribute more to the organizational goals, maybe the agreeable behaviors. This is where the appraisals may not reflect their performance appropriately. Check out the performance video based on the HR perspective in regards of the performance appraisal. So, after clarifying some questions, here comes the definition of individual performance in OB perspective. That is the behaviors that affect the goal of the organization. Performance is a multidimensional and dynamic concept, and each performance dimension is related to different aspects of organizational success. There are different models of behavior dimensions of job performance, such as Campbell's multi-factor model that includes task-related and non-task-related factors. Volmer and Motowidlo tried to distinguish the task and contextual performance. The term organizational citizenship behavior, OCB, and counterproductive work behavior, CWB, and adaptive performance. So first, task performance. It is defined as the proficiency by which individuals perform the core technical task central to his or her job. It includes the production tasks as well as service tasks, such as installing headlights on auto assembling lines, brewing a cup of coffee at a coffee shop, operating a surgery as a surgeon, driving a taxi, hosting a group of tourists for a local tour. Contextual performance is the behavior that supports the organizational, social, and psychological environment in which the technical core must function. It includes personal support such as helping new team members by offering tips based on experience, providing emotional support for colleagues' personal problems. Organizational support such as displaying loyalty by staying with the organization during crises like the pandemic, and conscientious initiative such as going beyond to learn the skills and knowledge that is not necessary. Researchers investigated a new construct that assembles behaviors defined by contextual performance. It is called Organizational Citizenship Behavior, OCB, and was defined as individual behavior that is discretionary, not directly or explicitly recognized by the formal reward system, and that in the aggregate promotes the effective functioning of the organization. Organizational citizenship behaviors, OCB, are also represented in Campbell's multi-factor model. There are several components such as altruism, conscientiousness, sportsmanship, courtesy, and civic virtue. The measure that's based on the 5 dimensions were developed, and I will put the information below. What's interesting about this is that researchers discovered that there are different dimensions in different cultures. Like Chinese, who care more about protecting companies' resources and interpersonal harmony, rather than the courtesy and civic virtue. We have discussed some other theories from the indigenous and ethnic perspective, like the paternalistic leadership. Check out the video here. There's another construct being well studied called Counterproductive work behavior, CWB, and defined as the behavior that harms the well-being of the organization. There's an interesting question here. Is counterproductive work behavior unintentional? Because if it is unintentional, it can be considered as low task performance and low OCB. Is CWB the opposite of OCB? Meta-analysis only found moderate negative relationship between the two variables, which didn't quite support the argument of opposite side of one dimension. So commonly, we still believe CWB are intentional behaviors by employees that contribute to the contrary of the organizational interest. The last dimension is adaptive performance. Adaptive performance, which was not initially included in Campbell's taxonomy, but the need for adaptive employees has been increasingly important. So here comes another question for you. Is adaptation more of a dispositional difference or behavioral difference? Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about job performance from HR perspective, please check out the other video. Thank you.